Tommy Short here, former Division I official. Since retired, I want to thank you for listening to the Crown Refs podcast, the audio experience for basketball officials. Go out and serve the game.
Thank you for listening to the Crown Refs podcast, the audio experience for basketball officials. Serve the game.
Welcome back to the Crown Refs podcast, the audio experience for basketball officials. We are here for an in-person episode in Times Square at the New York Marriott. I am here with former college basketball official Tommy Short. Thanks for meeting.
Paul, thanks for being here. Happy to be here.
You know, we were supposed to meet on Zoom this week, and a couple days before our session, you told me you would be in town.
Yeah.
This worked out well.
This worked out perfect. Nice little backdrop, too.
You know?
Can't beat this.
So tell us what you're here in town for.
Yeah, so went a year without a cell phone, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point, and wrote a book, which is coming out in a couple weeks, or March 31st, whenever this airs. And so in town this week to record the audio book at the publisher's studio. So excited to be
amazing.
here.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I saw you on LinkedIn. That's when I first learned about you. And just to rewind the story, a year ago, I was on LinkedIn and I saw another, it was an NFL umpire, Super Bowl umpire, who was also a podcaster.
Yeah.
So I've always gravitated towards referees who also have a creative side. So when I saw you, I was, number one, really interested in hearing more about your officiating career. Yeah. But then the fact that you launched a book, I figured this would be a great opportunity to talk reffing and talk, what you're promoting. So
absolutely. Was it Brian Neal by chance?
Yeah, Brian Neal.
Brian, who's also in Indianapolis. So we're at same city.
Yeah. Speaking of Indiana, we have our first ever Crown Refs camp coming out in May.
Fort Wayne.
How far are you from Fort Wayne?
Hour and a half.
Would you stop by?
100%.
Can we lock it in?
Lock it in right now. Coming to Fort Wayne.
You know, I haven't even started building out the guest list of people I want to invite. I'm trying to work out all the logistics first, but I'm glad that you're from Indiana. Let's go.
I'll get in the car there. Yeah, I'm there.
So we'll get into all your book and some of the biggest takeaways and how it can help our officials and just professionals and people in their personal life. But I want to rewind the story and just hear more about your officiating career. Talk to me just from a grassroots perspective. How'd you get into officiating? When was this? Who got you in? Talk about your high school journey, and then we'll make our way up the mountain.
So funny story with that. So if they kept track in 6th grade as a basketball player of the league leader in technicals, I think your boy would have been at the top of the list. I was a hothead.
We got to end the interview right now.
To say the least. And it was never one conversation, Paul, but I always remember having an affinity for officials that would come up to me after I received a technical and at least talk to me. Now, I never agreed with anything they said, but I always appreciated the handful that came up to me. And I remember in 6th grade, very distinctly remembering thinking, I want to do that one day. I want to be the referee that is not a robot, is not standoffish, doesn't have all the answers, but is willing to be human and have that interaction with players. And I just, again, it wasn't one, it was just the course of that year. And so at 12 years old, I just decided I'm going to referee at some level. And then as I got older, through grade school, my gym teacher let me referee
I'm a gym teacher.
Yeah, the 1st and 2nd grade, intramural games.
I do that with some of my students.
Yeah, I had a shirt on that was like a triple XL, past my knees, but had so much fun. Didn't know when I blew the whistle, do I have an open hand? Do I have a closed? What am I doing? I'm just running around. And so, just started asking questions. Got into high school, and after graduating from high school, I just realized if I don't start now, when would be the perfect time? And like anything else in life, there's never a perfect time. So started asking some friends who were referees, started getting into high school, got introduced to John Adams, who was my first mentor, and that's a funny story that we can get into. And then like anything else, success leaves clues. So NBA was the goal, didn't get that, but had a great run in Division I, and it was a great run, but it started in 6th grade.
That's amazing.
Just getting a bunch of technicals throughout the season.
I don't know if I've heard any stories of people being inspired in 6th grade while they're playing to one day become a referee.
That's my origin story.
That's some foresight right there.
Yeah.
So you got certified at what age, and then how did your high school career go, and when did you decide to start taking those next steps towards college?
Yeah, so I started at 18. Okay. Got certified in high school, and then my dad knew John Adams, And I'll never forget, I get introduced. So I just finished my first year.
He was born right around where I live too. He's
Yeah,
from New York.
Upstate New York. And so get introduced to John, and I'll never forget, I'm thinking, 19 years old, met at a Pacers game. I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, my dad knew him just kind of in business, not close at all, but I'm thinking like, oh, I've got it in. This guy assigns Division I, II, and III, like, it's going to be great. And
I'm going right to the dance.
Yeah, just put me right into the Final Four. And I'll never forget the first time we met. It was, and if anyone knew John when he was still around, like, he didn't mince words. He was straight to the point. You can ask a question, but you better be prepared for the answer. And there was no, hey, I'm John Adams, nice to meet you. It wasn't, I know your dad, it was, the only thing I can give you is an opportunity. What you do with it is up to you. And turns and walks away. And I'm like, wait, that's it? Like, I thought we were going to have like a 30-minute conversation and you were going to give me all these tips.
It's like, yo,
yeah, it was just like, here's 19 words and then out. But in business, I still consider myself a referee, once a referee, always a referee. I really appreciated the people that were straight shooters, because there's a lot of people in any industry that will tell you what you want to hear or drag you along, and John was the complete opposite. At 19, I didn't understand or appreciate that, but at 42, looking back on a nearly 2-decade career, I would have paid a ton of money for just the insight and just a straight shooter, to have someone in your corner that's going to tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Crown Refs family. Here's a quick update on our longtime partnership with Referee Store. We've been working with them since 2019, and we're excited to announce a brand new discount code that gives you 10% off all basketball officiating gear. Use the new code CRW10 at refereestore.com to save on everything from NCAA and high school approved jackets and pants to essential accessories. This expanded offer includes the full basketball category and not just the United Attire brand like last time. We're proud to team up with Referee Store to support officials like you who are committed to getting better and serving the game. The link is ready for you in the episode description. Now let's get into the podcast.
Every official's journey is different. Some officials make it to D1 in 3 years.
Yeah.
Some make it in 13 years.
Yeah.
So I always tell officials, don't compare yourself to anyone else's journey.
Absolutely.
So how was it for you getting to D1? How long did it take you? And then any other stories that stand out from your career?
So starting high school, again, just got started with local associations, and I'll never forget, it was my first JV game, and fortunately the varsity officials were already there. And so we go in at halftime of the JV game, and one of the varsity officials is like, how long have you been working? And I was like, this is actually my first game at any high school level. And he was like, this can't be your first. And I was like, no, it really is. And he was like, you could work varsity. And I was just like, oh, okay. And literally that guy kind of took me under his wing that first year. So 19, started working high school. The next year I got hired in small college at 20. John hired me into the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference. So funny story there, one of the first college games I'm working, one of the players is like, are you even old enough to ref? And I was like, well, how old are you? And he was like 22. And I'm like, well, you're older than me, so let's just have a good game. So I spent 5 years doing small college, and then I was fortunate, got hired into Division I at 25. Wow. And then did that for almost 11 years until I came off the court at 36. So was working high school until I got to small college. And I just my path, like you said earlier, everyone's path is different. I just knew once I got into small college, I had a good enough schedule that I was able and fortunate to stop with high school. And then once I got into Division I was able to stop working small college and then just focus on Division I for the last 11 years.
Okay. And I looked at your row of conferences. There was quite a bit of them from the Big 12, I believe.
Yeah, Big 12,
USA.
American, Atlantic 10, Conference USA. Let's see if I can rattle all 10. Horizon, Sun Belt Southern, Ohio Valley, Missouri Valley. I think that might be 10. And was fortunate. Worked my last 2 years, the OVC championship game back to back.
What year was that?
So it would have been 2019 and 2020. The 2 years I worked the Sun Belt tournament, the Southern postseason tournament. Had a really, really good run. And then in 2020, so when I was 36, retired from basketball.
So let's talk about that decision to retire.
Yeah.
Why did you retire? You're at the peak of officiating career, still very young too as well.
Yeah.
So what was it based on that decision?
Yeah. You might have had a similar feeling as a first-time dad. So that prior to my last season, we had our first girl in May of 2019. Thank you. And so as the season was coming closer, I had this, what I would equate to like this new dad feeling, right? It's like you got your first child, you're like immersed, you want to, now you have another human that you're responsible for and need to keep alive. And so I just remember having this feeling of like, I don't want to be a FaceTime dad. I just remember seeing
FaceTime
a lot of,
dad.
I just remember seeing a lot of officials and being in locker rooms. And I just also knew like the trajectory.
I'm sorry, that line just hit me, like of what not to be.
Yeah, I didn't want to be a FaceTime dad. And look, some of my best friends still to this day are officials, and I don't judge anyone how they make a living. I could see the writing on the wall. I was fortunate every year in Division I, the number of games that I got increased every single year. And the conferences, I started getting better, bigger conferences, more Power 5, whatever. And so I could see the writing on the wall. If this trajectory continued, by the time I'm 42 or 45, I'm going to be working 80, 90 games and I'd be home 1 or 2 nights a week, if that. So I just had this new dad feeling, but I wasn't sure. And, I always get a kick out of athletes who go on their like retirement tour and then they retire and then 2 months later they're like, I'm back, right? So I didn't tell my parents at the time, my wife, any of my supervisors, any of my buddies. I was like, let me just play this year out and just see if it's this new dad feeling and if that subsides and do I want to just continue it. And like I'm sure a lot of officials, when I started, I was 18, single, got to travel the country.
Way different.
And getting hired at Division I at 25, you're going to all these different cities. It's a lot of fun, right? And so I'll never forget, Paul, I was about 90% sure, again, didn't tell anyone what was on my heart of like, this might be the last year, which sounded so bizarre to even verbalize, because if you would have met me prior to that year or any time before, you would have said, oh, Tommy's going to be a ref until he's 65, 70, or until they drag him off the court.
You were all in.
That was my identity. And hopefully we can get into that, because I was not able to separate what I did from who I was. That like I was a referee and that's it. And so I'll never forget, I'm in a elevator in the Dallas Fort Worth Marriott in late February 2020. And I used to have my bag tags from Delta, my medallion tags, as like a sense of pride. Like, look at me, I'm important. I fly a lot. I've got status. And I'll never forget, I'm in the elevator. I'm looking at my phone, and February is the dog days. Like, coaches are on the hot seat. We haven't seen our families. Teams are playing back to back. Like, everybody's just kind of in a bad mood, right? Yeah. And this guy walks in, and I've told this story 1,000 times, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but I'm paraphrasing. And I know what he's looking at, and I'm not even looking at him. And he says something to the effect of, wow, it must be great to have that much status, or to be able to travel all the time, or, and it was very like, it wasn't condescending. It was very like, almost like he was starstruck, like he hadn't seen someone with that medallion bag tag. And I just remember in that moment, I had never thought about, hey, what am I going to say if I have this conversation with somebody? I just remember in that moment looking up at him and just saying, it's really not that cool. It just means I'm away from my family. Wow. And it literally was like a scene from the movies. The elevator doors open, I walk out, and I just remember like going from 90% to 100 and just thinking like, yeah, that was the sign that I needed, that like, I know I'm done. I knew God put it on my heart that like, I got into officiating for no ill or bad reasons. I just knew like there was something else that I was being called for, where I could take what I had learned on the court and apply that in every other area of my life, because that served me and gave me unbelievable opportunities. Literally traveled across the world with FIBA and spent 7 Christmases straight at the Diamond Head Classic. Like, wow. I mean, unbelievable opportunities. I got paid to run up and down a basketball court. Like, I think we all need to put that in perspective at one time or another, that like it's a game and we're just a middleman there for 2 hours to help steward the game. So for me, I just knew that it was time in 2020 to hang it up. So worked the OVC championship that year, went to Frisco for the Conference USA tournament, worked the first game, and then that next day is when kind of the world shut down in sports with all the conference tournaments were being suspended or canceled in the tournament. And then so I knew like, all right, this was the end. Not how I wanted to go out, but that's how it ended.
Did COVID have anything to do with the decision? Make it easier?
And it's funny. A good buddy of mine who's been on the show, Tyler Ford. I don't follow the news still to this day. I don't have news apps.
Nor do I. I know nothing.
Nothing. So I knew nothing about COVID, and I was talking to Tyler. I just finished in Evansville, flying to Frisco, and he was like, "Yeah, this Friday in Golden State, we're not going to have fans at my game." And I was like, "Why aren't you going to have fans?" And he was like, "COVID." And I was like, "What's that?" That Tuesday of that week, Monday or Tuesday, that was the first time I heard about COVID. I didn't know what COVID was, and then at the quarterfinal game at Conference USA, someone from the office came in at halftime and said, "Tomorrow, no fans, and every player's only going to get 2 tickets." And I was like, "Oh, this must be like a real thing." And then we finished those games that night, and then the next day is when that night was the Rudy Gobert Grizzlies, the NBA game where he was touching the mic, and then that game got canceled.
Okay.
And then the next day is when all our conference tournaments got canceled. So yeah, the night before, that Tuesday, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday, was my last college game.
Did you email your signers
no,
right after that?
No, so I waited about a week, and then it was funny, like, so Curtis Shaw and John Adams were like my first 2 mentors. And I just remember, like, because John is who was the first person I met in college basketball. He's the first person that hired me, my first mentor. Like, I was very close with him. And I remember pacing in my basement for like 45 minutes, rehearsing the conversation and like, how am I going to tell the guy that like put his neck out there for me that like, hey, you gave me unbelievable opportunities, but I almost felt like I was doing him a disservice. And I'm fortunate that we got to talk many, many times after I retired before he passed away. And Paul, that was probably the longest conversation he and I ever had, for probably an hour. And he couldn't have been more appreciative, more supportive. Hey, you're doing the right thing. Like, your family comes first. And John always used to tell us in camps, like, your order of priorities should be faith, number 1, whatever your faith is, your family, your real job, 3, and then if you have time for basketball, 4. And what I realized after retiring, I would have told you those were my priorities, but my real priorities were officiating was 1, 2, and 3. If I had time for God, my family, and my job, they shared the 4th spot. And I just don't think that's how, especially in this profession, that's not how we should. Again, just my own personal opinion. It took me almost 25 years to realize that after getting started, but that's really what my priorities should have been, but they weren't when I was officiating.
Quick question. Have you enjoyed the podcast? Maybe you found value in the video clips. Maybe you like the feedback I give officials after games. Have you ever thought, I would like to get that feedback in a one-to-one setting? Well, that option is available. Inside Crown Refs, we offer a one-to-one tier on Patreon. And with this membership, you and I meet on Zoom every month to do a deep dive into your film, breaking down your mechanics, your communication, your confidence, everything that helps you improve both on and off the court. You also get 4 pieces of Crown Refs merch sent to you over the course of a year. You get access to all our group training sessions on Zoom and full access to our Discord channels and our entire library on Patreon. You also get access to our annual camp and so much more. If you're serious about your growth and want direct feedback, direct mentorship, and accountability, I'd love to work with you. Check out the Patreon one-to-one tier or any other membership level at patreon.com/CrownRefs.
It's a really cool story.
Yeah.
You know, you don't hear it very often, especially people of like at that level of your career, and putting family first, putting the relationships with your daughter, with your wife, and that, number 1, I think that's super admirable and like needs to be championed in. You know? Not like, oh, he could have had this great career. No, it's like, look what he did for himself, for his family, and he prioritized his things that were most important in his life.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day too, like, and again, at that time, only had our oldest daughter. Youngest daughter came 2 years later. But like at the end of the day, it was like, yeah, it was cool to tell a stranger that you were on ESPN last night, or like, oh, I've got this game on TV tonight. But like, I just kind of like saw in the future, like, my girls aren't going to care if I was on ESPN. No. They want to know, like, were you at home for my dance recital or my gymnastics competition? And again, not that you can't be a great father or husband as an official. I just saw kind of the writing on the wall, like, as I was doing more games and had these wonderful opportunities, I couldn't have both. And at the end of the day, being a great dad took priority over being a great official.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We'll circle back to some officiating talk because, you know, we have an audience of dedicated refs who
Yeah.
are just looking to get better.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be a lot of takeaways from this next part of this conversation. So let's transition to off the court.
Yeah.
So what did you do next after you retired? And then how did you come about going without a cell phone for a year?
Yeah. So for whatever reason, ever since I finished college, I always had a coach on the business side. Just have always believed in the value of not only mentors, but also of paying someone who is objective and can call out your blind spots. I think it's critical in officiating, but also in business and life as well.
Absolutely.
So when I retired from officiating, I decided to start my own business. And at the beginning, it was just executive coaching. So working one-on-one with executives in the C-suite in a leadership position, really taking everything that I learned from officiating, how to be a great teammate, how to be decisive, how to have tough conversations, the importance of your habits and your mindset and how that can dictate everything else going on in your life. And so I wanted to take that from the basketball court to the boardroom. And so that's what I was doing in the beginning, and then had a couple of my clients reach out and were like, hey, can you come speak to our sales team?
Nice.
Arrogantly enough, I'm like, all right, if I'm on a court with 15,000 people getting screamed at, how hard can it be to walk into a room with 200 people and just share stories for an hour?
Good self-talk right there.
Yeah. It's a little more nuanced than that, but I spoke 7 times, I think my second year in business, and Paul, I just got the itch.
Nice.
I tell people, and unless you're an official, it would be hard to understand or comprehend this, but it's the closest thing from a performance standpoint to officiating, but it only scratches like 60% of the itch. But from everything from having all my speeches recorded, because I'm a film junkie at heart from officiating. So now I'm able to break it down, the preparation before, then you have the actual performance, and then the post-game breakdown of like, where can I do better? Where can my pacing be better? Where can my tone be better? What can I let just sit and linger? Everything.
You're about the craft now.
Yeah. Even when I see other speakers now, like 5% is listening for like what they're saying, but 95 is like their hand movements, their body movement, their tone, how they're shifting their weight, like all of the nuances of their craft. Not so much like what they're saying, but how they're going about it. And so got into speaking and really just got the itch and noticed like, hey, I can share all the stories that I have, but those are finite. Like I'm not going to go back on the court and have these opportunities to handle a heated coach, to handle a player, to work with my other 2 partners. So I just realized 2 things. One, I don't have opening day on my calendar anymore to get ready for. So that was the first.
You're available.
Yeah. And 2, I need to actively look for environments and situations that I can put myself in that's going to make me uncomfortable. 1, for the sake of growing, but 2, that's also going to provide the content on stages.
There you go.
So I guess that's a great transition into the year without a phone. I had a steadfast rule after walking away from the court. You know, as you know, as an official, like, you know, you get back to the hotel, you got the iPad, you're doing mental math. It's maybe 1 o'clock. You got a wake up call at 4:30. All right, how much can I watch? How much sleep can I get? And so when I retired, I said, and I don't set a timer, but if I don't fall asleep within 5 minutes, I'm going to do 1 of 2 things. And they both involve leaving the bedroom. I'm going to read a physical book, or I'm going to write with pen and paper or on a whiteboard, just physical writing. And so summer of 2023, I'm about to go to sleep and I just get this crazy idea. What if you went a year without a cell phone? And I'm like, that is the dumbest idea.
Hear that on a
No, it just
radio?
literally popped in my head. I was about to fall asleep and it was like, what if I went a year without a cell phone? And I'm like, why would I do that? Like, I just started my business within the last 2 years, 2 young kids, a lot of like family issues with health and stuff. And if nothing else from that year without a cell phone, and I talk about it in the book a little bit, it should give someone the insight or the permission to realize, and I call it out, it was the worst time I could have done this, like the worst. But yet so true in life, there's never a perfect time to start anything. A diet, a workout plan, officiating, like there's never going to be like the right time. It's just, hey, what's one step I can do today? And just at the end of the day, see what happened. What can I do better? What did I learn? And tomorrow, can I take another step towards that? So in August of 2023, turned the phone off and went 365 days. I'm sure you might have some questions about that, but went a full year without the phone. And as you alluded to at the beginning, we're here recording the audiobook this week, and the book, whenever this podcast drops, the book will be out March 31st, wherever books are sold.
You had a vision and an idea that hit you that transformed and kind of set you up for your next career.
Yeah.
A big idea too,
Yeah.
because I haven't heard anybody talk about that before. I know your publishers had never heard of that,
Yeah.
and they were interested in hearing more about that story. So you turn the phone in. Where do you put it?
Yeah.
And then how do you go about operating a business and being in contact with people and existing in the modern world?
Yeah. Great question. So turned it off on August 5th of 2023, put it in my office, and just left it there. So I didn't take it in the
Did
call.
you cancel your subscription?
I didn't. I should have. I just paid Verizon that whole year. I probably should have put it on hold, but just paid Verizon every month. So Verizon, reach out. We probably need to do a brand deal.
Back pay.
Yeah. So I didn't take it with me in the car when I took the girls to school, or I didn't take it with me when I traveled to speak. Going in the airport was a little unique because didn't have a boarding pass, so I had to print out driving directions, boarding pass, hotel reservation, rental car. I had a stack of papers. So I didn't have it with me. It wasn't, and the only rule of thumb was if there was a true life or death emergency at home.
Okay.
So not like the kids are sick, I left something at the store, forgot something. It was just, I'm an all-in guy, so I don't do anything like toes in the water. It's like I'm gonna go all in or I'm not gonna do it. And so that was the cadence and the rule. To your second part of your question, how did I survive? So, and I think this is important for officials at any level, because I think there's this unspoken rule that we've got to be attached to this, because you never know when we're going to get a call from a supervisor. And for the officials listening, that, if, let's say, Paul, you're on the game and you get caught up in traffic and with travel or weather or whatever, like the supervisor is going to call me and I get 4 rings. Mm-hmm. And if I don't answer without saying no, I'm saying no. And I could have been doing something else in a meeting, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But that supervisor, as you know, is not leaving a message, is not texting, is not going to call him back. Nope. It's just, hey, Tommy's not available, which is fine. I'm going to go to the next person on the list. All right, let's see if Tyler's available. All right, let's go to the next one. So even and I would say in almost 20 years, Paul, that maybe happened twice where I got a call where it was like, hey, you're in Morgantown, West Virginia, and I need you to go to El Paso, or whatever. Maybe 2 that I can remember. But unfortunately, when I retired, I was attached to it. Because it was like, I don't want to miss a call about speaking, and I just had it everywhere. And there was no boundaries. It was just like, the phone's going to be with me wherever. And I just realized, is that really the best way to proceed? Is that really what I want to do? Or am I just doing that because that's the way I've always done it, which I think is one of the worst things that we can do in any walk of life, to just do something because someone else is doing it, or that's the way we've always done it. And so I just realized, if not now, when? And I had this idea, let's just run with it. And then the second thing, when I started my business, I realized previously in other jobs and in officiating, I had email on my phone, and email was just almost like text. It was just respond and check it whenever. So when I started my business, I don't have email on my phone. I haven't since I started my business. And I realized not everyone can do this, but it's my end of day routine. So I have an hour on my day. At the end of the day, it's my shutdown routine. It's my end of day routine. And that's when I check email. Okay. I have a permanent away message on my email. So if you send me an email, it just says, I don't respond to email in the moment. Mm-hmm. I promise I will reply.
I think I got that.
Yeah.
I think I was impressed by that.
Yeah. So it's not just something I'm saying here on camera. It's something I actually do.
It's a nice courtesy.
Yeah. And I say, hey, I'll get back to you within 48 hours. But what I tell my clients in speaking, I'm not a fireman, I'm not a policeman, and I'm not a paramedic. There's no emergency. And I think, unfortunately, in life, we let someone else's priority or what is important to them become our emergency, and that's not always the case. And so email, I still have my laptop during the year, but I did not take any app that was on my phone, so I didn't have iMessage. I didn't listen to any podcast. That was the rule. If it was on my phone, I couldn't bring it over. So the only thing I used my computer for, I did have virtual speaking engagements, coaching calls over Zoom, and then email once a day. But other than that, just no phone, and that's the only way I could communicate with.
So you're listening to terrestrial radio in the car, right?
Yeah, just whatever was on the radio. And funny enough, that's how the girls figured out that I didn't have my phone, because one day they asked me to play Taylor Swift, and I was like, girls, I can't play Taylor Swift. And they're like, we listen to Taylor Swift every day to school. Like, why can't we listen? And so just explaining to them,
I'm a little different, right, guys?
So that was how I kind of broke it to the girls of like, that's when it computed with them. We can't listen to Taylor Swift. Oh, Dad doesn't have a phone. So
now I'm thinking about your wife now.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you speaking with your wife throughout the day? How you guys in contact? You're not sending her a nice text.
Yeah.
Lunch break.
Fortunate that we both worked from home. So other than the times that I was traveling for speaking or had speaking engagements in Indy or on the road, it was just no different than when I'm on stage or with a client. Like, my phone's going to be off for 3 or 4 hours anyway. So it took some getting used to. I think it really just forced the intentionality of conversations and where you're going to be and what you're going to do. So that certainly helped being intentional about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you got rid of your cell phone, but you probably were speaking on a rotary phone, right? People
no
during
no
the day?
phone.
No landlines?
No landline.
Wow.
No flip phone, no burner, no pager, no landline. Now I tell people, like, I held a phone, like my parents, if they FaceTime my wife to talk, to the kids.
That's an exception.
Yeah, but
that's legal.
Yeah.
Legal.
I'll tell you a quick story. So one of my rules too with family and friends, like, don't call my wife to get a hold of me. Like, she's not my secretary. And I also said, if there was ever a situation that, because I put myself in, I wasn't going to use someone's phone as like a get out of jail. So I thought of a lot of things going in. One of the things I didn't think through was this 2-step authentication when you're trying to like pay bills or do something. So I was going to pay my credit card bill with Chase that first week, and they were like, we sent a text for 2-step, and I'm like, now I could have very easily gone to my wife and said, hey, pull this up on your computer. But again, the rule I set for myself, I put myself in this situation. So where there was a flat tire and I had to walk somewhere. Wow. Thankfully, that never happened. But any situation I needed to, if I was an adult and decided to do this, I have to be an adult and figure it out. So had to go to my local Chase bank, take my passport, and
you went in the branch.
I went in the branch, which is like a wild concept to listeners. And it was funny. The teller must have been 25, 26. Couldn't wrap his head around the fact that I was voluntarily giving up my cell phone. He's like, well, can't you just turn it on? And I was like, yes, I could, but I'm going a year without a cell phone. And he was like, you don't have any cell phone? And I was like, no cell phone, no smartphone, no flip phone. So I was there for like 3.5 hours so that they could prove my identity and then like remove the 2-step authentication. I was like, hey, look, I still want to use your credit card and pay you. Mm-hmm. Can we like figure something out for the next 12 months? So that was just kind of a funny story of like spending 3.5 hours inside a Chase branch the first week of the journey.
I was thinking of, it's one thing to have the idea about going without a cell phone, and then the actual work begins. Like, you mentioned the 2-way authentication with Chase, or all websites that you belong to.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of myself as a driver. When I drive 7 minutes, I put the GPS, I just follow the purple line home.
Yeah.
How did you navigate on the road?
Yeah,
MapQuest?
So I printed out MapQuest, Google Map directions. Actually got lost in Detroit.
I don't know if that's the best city to get lost
Not
in.
the best city. Thankfully, knock on wood, I navigated that okay. And along those lines too, Paul, it's this very strange dichotomy where I could get in the car and not one single person in the world would A, know where I was, or B, get a hold of me. And like on that end, it's like, that's kind of freeing. Like, how many times do we ever have that opportunity? But then in that same car ride, on the other side, it's like, God forbid something happens, nobody knows where I am. Like, there's no way to ping my phone. There's no way to, and unfortunately, and kind of the bigger takeaway, which I would love to leave with your audience, is like, too often when we get this big vision of the future, whatever it may be, whether it's in officiating, whether it's in chasing a dream, starting a business, starting a podcast, whatever it is, when we have this big vision of the future, we let little inconveniences in the present stop us before we even take the first step. And then we can what if it to death. What if nobody subscribes to my podcast? What if I can't find guests? But but you can also what if it the other way. What if this turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to me? What if I am able to become a version of myself that maybe it wouldn't have happened for 15 or 20 years, and now I've just shrunk the timeline down to a year. So for me, thankfully I hit the parent lottery. I was just raised like to be optimistic, to be real, but to be optimistic, and to not let any limits up here stop me from at least taking that first step and trying it. So for me, it was like, hey, this has never been done. No one's ever written a book about it. Why not me? Why can't I be the first person? And so for me, that was like the driving force of like, hey, the chances of getting to Division I are slim. The chances of going a year without a cell phone are probably even slimmer. But I've always just had this mentality of like, I'm going to try it. And I'd rather fail, which is nothing more than feedback, than looking back with regret of like, oh man, what could have been? What could this have been? Who could I become? Which is even more important than any journey you go on. It's just who can you become as a result of going through it. And for me, that was the biggest takeaway or the biggest advantage of just this version of me that I became, that I don't know if and when that would have come had I not gone through that year without a phone.
I love how you reframe the what if scenario.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us, we do the worst case scenario for a what if, because we're based on fear and just that weakness of not being able to push past that friction.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you were able to do it. What were some of your biggest takeaways in that year?
I would say the first was pretty short. Things that don't matter. And then kind of the subtitle behind that is, unfortunately, we never take the time to identify what truly matters in life. So we spend a lot of our time chasing success or someone else's version of success. And it's not even something that we want to chase. And to piggyback off that, so that was, I had several takeaways. That was the main one. And then within a week of finishing the year without a cell phone, my mom got sick and ended up passing away. Thank you. 3 months later. And so it was almost like God was preparing me for things that don't matter. And then it was like, the person that you're closest to, I'm an only child, like now I'm the power of attorney. Now I'm, having to make decisions that I don't think anyone should have to make for their parent or any loved one. And it was like, officiating prepared me for the year without a phone. The year without a phone prepared me for being at my mother's bedside for 106 days while she was in the hospital and never coming home. So for me, it was just having this reorientation of like, what truly matters? Have you defined success on your own terms? And then also realizing like, whatever you want to go after in life, whether it's friends, family, people you don't know, they might think about it or you for like 30 seconds, but they have so much other crap going on in their own life. They don't really care if you fail, succeed, don't try it, do try it. And so for me, going through this year without a phone, identifying what truly matters, getting really clear. But I think one of the coolest things was, as much as this was a year without a phone, the year had nothing to do with the cell phone. And I know that sounds so bizarre, but it was like the cell phone was the analogy, and this fits in, flying here today on an airplane. I say in the book too, like the analogy I use is my phone was like the boarding pass. And if you think about it, like the boarding pass is only as good once it gets scanned and you know where your seat is. Once you're in your seat, that boarding pass becomes obsolete, because chances are it might not be a round trip, to wherever you're going, especially in officiating. It might be just a lot of one ways to get home. But even when you come back home, what do you need? You need a new boarding pass. So for me, it was like the phone just was like the vehicle to start the year, but it was really this like reawakening. I got a lot closer and deeper in my faith, like really started to examine every part. The phone was like a flashlight and all these different buckets in my life, relationships, emotional, spiritual, financial, work-related, like everything. It was just like, hey, how's this working out? Do you like that? If not, okay, what do we want to change? And it was like the phone just gave me this avenue to really examine all of these different areas in my life. So for me, again, as much as this year was without a phone, it really had nothing to do with the cell phone. And that was the coolest part.
I like what you said, how people don't really understand or lock in what's truly important. So then they go down a different pathway, chasing something that they're not even interested in, struggling on that pathway. So it's so important to figure out what means the most so you can map towards that and put your energy and direction towards that.
And I think too, and obviously this happened after officiating, but I kind of started down that because I just realized, like we talked about earlier, that last year was like, yeah, I walked away in my prime, and it's funny, some of my buddies back in Indy, like Andrew Luck walked away in his prime.
Yeah.
I was like, the only difference
You're the Andrew Luck of officiating, bro.
the only difference is he's got a lot more zeros and commas in his bank account than I had when I stepped away. But it was like, I can't be worried about what Paul thinks, what Matt thinks, because they've got their own journey. They're at different parts, like you alluded to. But for me, I just knew, like, yeah, I had this amazing career, and yeah, I walked away at the peak, but I didn't want to live with regret. And I talk about in the book too, like, I don't want to be the old guy up here on my porch saying, like, don't use cell phones, they're bad. Like, I have nothing against cell phones, and I'm not against cell phone use, but what I am against is burdening regret that may or may not surface for 15 or 20 years because we haven't taken the time to identify what truly matters, or we're just attached to this for work or personal, like whatever the reason. But it's like, have we taken the time to at least set our own path in life, whether it's officiating or not? And it was really hard for me at first, even for like 3 or 4 years, to separate who I am versus what I did. Because I saw that referee, that striped shirt, like, that's who I am. I mean, so much so I still have the email. I don't use it anymore. My very first email was tommytheref@gmail.com. Like, that's who I was. Like, I missed weddings, I miss funerals, I miss birthday parties, because if I wasn't a pallbearer or standing up as a groomsman, like that was the filter. Like, if I'm not doing that and I have a game, and it didn't even have to be a regular season game, because at Division I, you're still getting good money for exhibition games. So it was like, but I was like looking back and I'm like, do I really want to like not be there for like those that are most important for me? Or do I want to just like tell a stranger or my girls one day, like, I was on ESPN? Like, that's not that cool at the end of the day, at least for me.
Yeah. I feel a part of me thinks you should get back into officiating on a local level, join an Indiana board, just work low-level games.
Too much pride.
And you'll be like that custodian that could have been in the NBA. That used to be in the NBA, and just happy as a custodian.
Yeah, just making it work.
Give it back.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So we're getting towards the end of your 1 year without a cell phone.
Yeah.
Are you excited? Let's say 2 weeks before that you turn your cell phone on.
Yeah.
Are you looking towards that date? Are you like, oh, I'm getting my cell phone back? Or are you saying, I don't need this, I can go another year?
Both, right? Like, it was, I thought going into the year, if any of your listeners have done a marathon, I thought it would be like a marathon. I thought the first, call it 3 months would be like the first 5 miles. People are bunched together in a marathon, a lot of endorphins. You're excited, it's something new. I thought the hardest part would be the middle, which, like a marathon, people start to spread out. You're not next to people. And then I thought the easiest part would be the end. It was kind of the inverse. The beginning wasn't very hard because it was new, it was exciting to tell people. The middle was just like getting in a routine. The end was like, oh crap, like, how am I going to go back, right? Because I had this big plan of like reintroducing the phone, setting new boundaries. Then obviously, with my mom getting sick, and that was really like, we started to see some things the last like week or two that I was on this journey. So much so to the point where if it would have happened in the midway point, I would have had to have like call it off just because I would have had to have been there. So I really went from like, before starting the year, attached to the phone, cold turkey 12 months, not on it, and then like right back to 10, 12 hours a day, just with like, again, unique situations, scheduling doctor's appointments, taking notes, communicating with doctors. So there was a lot of like unknowns of like trying to get back into the year without a phone, and kind of like readjusting, and like, how am I gonna be perceived? What are my friends and family gonna think? Not that I wasn't seeing them or talking to them, but just kind of like a lot of unknown. But a big part too of like, hey, I've managed how to do this. Like, I think I could do a full another year without it. And there's still times when I'm like, I think I would be a lot better off without having the thing, as useful as it is. But
hey, we exchanged nice texts today.
yeah,
You still got it.
I still have the ability to do that. Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned internal stillness. When I was looking at your bio, I stopped there and I said, wow, that's an amazing term. I try to always find that internal stillness, that level of calmness, composure, and just quietness in the face of amplified noise.
Yeah.
So define it for me, and how has that helped you?
Well, let me go back. So for some of your listeners, depending how old they are, they're not going to know what a snow globe is. But there's certain section of your audience who's going to know, but I always looked at officiating, like some nights I felt like that snow globe was just being like shaken the whole night, and it's like you can't see through it. But then there were other times when it was as if the snow globe was just sitting on a table for 20 minutes and you could see right through it. And I was like, I want to get more of that, knowing that every game's not going to be like that, but how can I get more moments like that? So for me, internal stillness is, regardless of what's going on outside, you have total control over your breath, over your actions, over your effort, over, like everything inside is just locked in, and you're not being influenced by the external. So little things like during a game, that working with a mentor of mine, like finding mindless moments during the game to become more mindful. So at some schools easier than others, but during timeouts, just looking up and reading banners, just literally doing nothing more than just reading banners, because that puts me in the present moment. Okay. Because if I'm not in the present moment, I'm either in the past worried about calls I missed, or in the future about what's going to happen if they score and they go, down 6, now they're down 4, or, whatever, all these. But it's like, how can I just become in the present moment? And then the second thing I did is every time I crossed a line on the court, so, everyone's going to know officials, baseline, free throw line, 3-point line, half court, down the other side. Always look at the shot clock and always say, run the game. So that was my way of like just continuing, like having that internal stillness of like, just continually saying like, run the game. Because I just wanted to, I didn't want to just listen to myself. I wanted to talk to myself. And I think too often as officials, we just listen to, we miss a call and we're like, you suck. And then we just go down a rabbit hole, versus 2 sentences that your audience can use. If I did something that was in line with the identity of who I was, I would say, that's like me throughout the game. If something happened, whether I didn't handle a conversation with a coach, I missed a call, whatever it may be, that's not like me. So I wanted to reinforce multiple times throughout the game little things that I did right, to reinforce, because I think as humans, we're really quick to go down the negative, and we don't always do a great job of reinforcing just basic things that we get right during a game, right? So either that's like me to positively reinforce, or when a mistake happens, that's not like me. Because I think at the end of the day, the thing that separates officials as we get to higher levels, or just as we move up the ladder, your ability to overcome little losses throughout the game. So a little loss can be a missed call. A little loss can be your partner's missed call. A little loss can be, can you get to your partner quick enough to give them a pat on the shoulder? Hey, Paul, don't worry about that last call, man. We still have 14 minutes left, and I need you. Is a little loss, you maybe didn't have a poker face when your partner makes a call in front of you. There's a number of issues, but your ability
you started sulking.
Yeah, your body language sucks, your head's down. So your ability to overcome those little losses and just stack them and know that like those are going to happen. Like no official is going to have a perfect game, but how quickly can you overcome that? Because the reality is we're all going to encounter some level of self-doubt during the game, but how quickly do you stay there versus getting out of it? And so for me, it was just telling myself, when one of those little losses came, that's not like me, and getting back to that internal stillness.
Love that. Like I tell officials when it comes time to clip in their plays, you want to clip the plays you got wrong, but I also want you to clip the plays that you did well, so you can see yourself in success mode. So start to rinse and repeat that process. Yep. Don't just look at your errors, don't look at your mistakes. And also, how are you looking at your mistakes? Are you looking at it through a positive growth mindset lens, or are you bashing yourself? Because bashing yourself will never help you.
I got this idea from, I want to say Manny Ramirez, not directly, but I heard this, that on game days, he would only watch like a 2-minute highlight clip that someone put together for him right before he walked on the field. And so as an official, again, to your point, we can clip all the bad plays all day long, but I had a 2-minute, whether it was out of bounds, block charge, illegal screen, like I just had a 2-minute clip that would be the last thing I watched right before I walked on the court. Yeah. Because right before I walked on the court, the last thing I said to myself is, be the best partner tonight. And I have just rewired my brain for 2 minutes of nothing but correct calls. Yeah. Right? Like, so that's what, I want to see the plays that I miss, but right before you go on the court, that's not the time to to flood yourself with missed calls or incorrect calls or, no call incorrect. Like, I just wanted to see the things that I was doing really well, because that just put me in the right frame of mind. That coupled with go be the best teammate tonight, that's what I was doing right before I walked on the court. And that really helped me just get in the right mindset when I walked on the court.
What's your advice to officials who struggle with that self-talk and are constantly, over harshly critiquing themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a short answer. I think it's kind of like, Steph Curry's probably arguably the best shooter of all time, and he's, I don't know what his career percentage is, but it's probably 46%, maybe 48. So he's missing every other shot. Now in officiating, if your play selection is that low, you need a different hobby and career. But it was just knowing, like, I'm not going to be perfect. As much as I want to be perfect, I know I'm not going to be. Give myself grace. Know you're not going to be perfect. But then also, it's just, again, having those habits and just change. A lot of times, I don't even think officials have a set talk track. They're just like going in blind. Like, they're going to read the rule book and know the manual and have the case book down. Yeah. But it's like, if you're not practicing the self-talk and those things, it's like you can be the best play caller, but if you then go in a tunnel and your partners can't count on you. So for me, it was just having that talk track, the things I want to say, and just constantly. A habit can be good or bad. Momentum can be good or bad. So just having that self-talk and just consistently coming back to that and repeating that. Even when I was watching film, I'm like, run the game. Like, what am I saying to myself? Like, lock in. So just always having those 3 or 4 phrases that you can always say to yourself, and then just constantly hammer them in your head on repeat.
Speaking of the Crown Refs camp, do you want to present at the camp too?
I'm in. Right. I'm in. I don't even know what the topic is, but I'm in. Fort Wayne is an hour and a half, so I'm there.
Yeah, I want to give you that opportunity.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. I know our officials would learn a lot from you. I want to transition to some good content for our listeners. You talked about you had a PhD in human behavior, so I want to talk about these 4 bullets. You talked about being decisive under pressure, having tough conversations, being a great teammate, and the ability to read people. So just for the first one, being decisive under pressure, what stands out for you there?
I would say those bullet points actually came back from a conversation I had with my, of all people, chiropractor, like right after I got into Division I. And like all referees and all humans, there's a natural tendency to want to be liked. So you walk on the court and you're like, I want this coach to like me. I want this coach to like me. I want the players to like me. And there was a distinct transition and trajectory in my career when I transitioned from wanting to be liked to being respected. And I was fortunate with one of my mentors, Joe DeRosa, of just always knowing, like, there's going to be times that you're going to have to make a call that not everyone is going to like, right? And just having that internal fortitude to know, like, if I put air in the whistle, it's going to stop the game. I better be right. I better know that, like, when I step on the court, my job, I'm not in the friends business. Like parenting, coaches need to know where the line is. Mm-hmm. And are you going to be consistent to hold that line, regardless of what that line is? And I feel like a lot of times officials are hesitant because they want everyone to like us. And it's like, we're not in the friend business. We're not here to be liked. So for me, being decisive under pressure, knowing, just having that wherewithal that when I blow the whistle, I'm going to be 100% correct. Whether it's my primary, certainly in my secondary, but in my primary, I want to be 100% correct. I'm not going to guess. I'm going to be in the best position. But I know that by having that internal talk track and knowing every time I blow the whistle, half the arena is going to hate me. Mm-hmm. The other half, just a little bit less because the call went in their favor. But when you go in there and know that there's going to be adversity, know that there's going to be things that happen that are going to be outside your control, but you have the ability to choose how you respond. Mm-hmm. So for me, that helped to be decisive under pressure and to know that, like, at some point people are going to be upset with you. That's table stakes for the business that we're in. Mm-hmm. You just have to know that people are going to be upset.
Absolutely. When you mentioned having tough conversations, was that with partners? Was that with coaches? What exactly context did you mean, and what would that sound like? Everything.
Couple things there. One, a mentor of mine, and I wish I could remember who, gave me this great acronym, WAIT, W-A-I-T. Why am I talking? And so whether it was with a partner, whether it was especially with a coach, I think too often, especially as humans, we listen to reply. Yeah. So I'm going to wait for Paul's lips to stop moving, and I'm not really listening to what he says because I got to tell you how great I am, how I just got that call right. I'm not listening to understand. But when you give yourself that pause and understand, is he really upset or is he just doing this for the home crowd? Is he upset or does he just realize like his guys aren't playing well and he's going to use this? So understanding like what's the real reason behind it, and also understanding the striped shirt, whether you're wearing it, I'm wearing it, or any other official, 99% of the time they're yelling at the shirt, not at the person. But I think too often in officiating we don't separate the two, and so it's like we got to puff our chest and it's like, hold on. He would have that same reaction if it was whoever the official was.
Could be an NBA ref.
It doesn't matter. So I would say that's one. And then two, in conversations, especially with the crew, the later years when I became the crew chief in locker rooms, I would always start the conversations with something I missed, something I got wrong. Because I just wanted the other two guys that I was working with that night know that there's nothing that's going to happen tonight. And that's one of the things I prided myself on. The rules, the mechanics, and I would tell guys all the time, even if they were older than me, which can be uncomfortable at times, guys, there's nothing that can happen tonight that I can't fix. There's no rule that you can kick. I'm not going to allow that. There's nothing with a coach. I will step in because I genuinely wanted to be the best partner, but that set my mindset back in the summer of when I got ready, because I wanted to put myself in that situation where I knew that my partners, whether they were 25 and just got into Division I or they were 55 and thought they should be the crew chief, I just wanted them to go out and referee. I didn't want them to have to worry about game management, the players, the team. I need you to referee. We all collectively need to own our third, but I just wanted them to not worry. And I found one of the best ways to alleviate tough conversations or to have the conversation, especially with our crew, was I'm going to open the conversation with, hey guys, last week I kicked this play or something. Because I just wanted them to see like, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. So, and then my dad always used to tell me too, there's a direct correlation in life to the number of uncomfortable conversations you have and success in whatever walk of life it is. So your ability to just have that tough conversation and get it out early, not dragging it on, your ability to just have that conversation up front, it's going to serve you and your teammates a lot better off in the long run than trying to avoid this tough conversation that needs to happen. Again, going back to being liked versus being respected. When you can make that delineation and you're not worried about being liked, I think it's a lot easier because I just want guys to say, hey, they might not like me, but you know what? When I work with Tommy, I know that like things are going to get run, the game's going to get run. There's not going to be any like foul play or horseplay. Like we'll have fun, but like we're here to do a job and to serve the game.
Yeah. That was probably a big turning point for you in your career when you stopped caring about what people thought and was more focused on the respect.
And a story I'll share that completely changed my mind. You know, as a young official, I was getting frustrated, right? Here I am, 25 in Division I. I was getting frustrated with the coaches because I couldn't understand the yelling at the shirt and how you could sometimes whether it was at an AU tournament in the summer or at a...
They stop, they give you a hug, they ask you about your family, and then you have them during the season, they're shouting at you. Does it sound like that?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And so living in Indy, I would go to Butler, and this is when Brad Stevens was still at Butler, and I would do a lot of their practices or scrimmages leading up to the season. And after one of those practices, I just walked up to him after, and Brad was fairly young at that time too, and I just said, hey Brad, can you help me understand when a game starts, like why some people, hint Brad, you were kind of like this too, why everything changes. And I genuinely was asking because I saw myself doing this for 40 years. I realized like, we don't have to be buddies, but we need to have a working relationship once that game starts. And I'll condense his answer, but he was like, we have to answer to, we have media obligations, the AD, boosters, alumni, RAD, the president. I'm really the CEO. I'm only coaching about 20% of the time. I got to give one coach, he's doing the scouting for these two teams. This other coach is scouting for the next two opponents on offense and defense. I'm recruiting 14 to 18-year-olds. No, thank you. And then he's got his own team. Not to mention, if they don't have practice or game, he's probably on the road. So when he comes home, he's just throwing a grenade into the system. And so he was like, hey, when the game starts and then there's a play, he was like, that's really just our release point. And I was like, Paul, like, I don't know what it was about having that 10, 15-minute conversation. It completely changed my perspective of they have a job to do, we have a job to do. They're kind of like musicians. They're moving around 15, 20 times, trying to get the, the big Power 5 gig, no different than referees are trying to work their way up. And so for me, it just, once I understood in the game, like, why they're like that, it even forced me or allowed me to, like, hey, how can I go a step further? And the last couple of years, here's a tip to officials, and it kind of goes to having tough conversations. I would watch, like, let's say I had West Virginia on Saturday. I would just pick one press conference during that week of Huggins. I just want to watch for 30 minutes. I watch it on like 2x speed. I just want to understand where his mind's at. Is he complaining about players? Is he complaining about the upcoming schedule? Is he complaining about whatever, a host of issues? Because I was then going to use that in the game. I couldn't use it 4 or 5 times, but there was one time specifically with him. He was complaining about one of my partner's calls, and I just let him finish. And without even talking about that play, and I can't remember the kid's name, I was just like, hey, is Paul still dogging it on transition defense? And he just looked at me and he was like, because I've got 2 choices when I go over there. I can go and argue with him and tell him I'm right and not all this, or I can try to just break his pattern and not every time I can't go over there and bring up something in
from a press conference.
But what I think what that shows is, like, one, why is he watching my press conference? So he's just expecting me to come over and argue. 2, I'm showing, like, I'm trying to understand where you are and what you do and what's going on in your world, not just the 40 minutes in front of us. But again, I still have to be able to get calls right. That's table stakes. But I wanted to start to get into the minds of coaches and understand where they are. And I think there was several times where that helped me either get out of a sticky situation or just understand, like, if he's mad at us, it could just be because he's mad at one of his players or how his team's performing.
I think you kind of answered both of the remaining bullets about reading people, about being a great teammate. I always tell new officials that join our community, we want to be the referee, the partner that everybody wants to work with. And you have to be a great partner, even to those that are not a great partner to you. Now, as you move up and work, higher level Division I think the partner level increases. But, I work in the grassroots level. So you have officials working with, just on the local level. And not everybody's going to be a great partner. Hey, by the way, not everybody loves reffing. Not everybody is like you and me. So we have to be able to navigate around those people as well, and being a great person to all, being integral, being humble, being kind, being supportive. That's what I'm all about.
100%. And to your point, regardless of how that official treats me, treats the other referee, like, I still get to decide how I treat him. I get to still decide how I treat the people that have nothing to do with our schedule, that take us to the locker room. I get to decide how I'm going to treat those people, how, even if someone is a jerk to me and you get your schedule and you see and you're like, I'll just meet you guys at the arena. Or on the flip side, I'm working with Paul and Matt, like, hey, when do you get in? Let's share a car. Like, I'm staying here. Even, as you move up, but I always wanted to pride myself on, I'm going to be a great teammate tonight, regardless of who the other 2 guys are. Even if I just have to grin and bear it, I'm not going to change my approach or who I am just because the other guy's having a bad day or I just genuinely don't want to be with him for 3.5 hours.
I feel like there's a lot of negativity in officiating. I put out a video the other day. It was kind of me being sarcastic, but I want to be a first ballot positivity Hall of Fame.
I saw that. And it's not that hard to be positive.
No.
But I think in officiating, whether it's like guys not getting the schedule they want or thinking they didn't get a fair shot, you're right. There's so much negativity, but there's also, like, as much as you want to look out and see the negativity, there's a lot of great people and great teammates that you're going to get to work with. It's just which perspective do you have, and even if people are going to be negative, you still have the opportunity and the ability to choose if you're going to be positive and optimistic. So
one of the other things you wrote in your bio is what officials struggle with the most. I want to be that support system for refs where I'm turning your weaknesses into your strengths. You know, like, we got to identify what you're struggling with so then we could empower those areas. So what do you think, just from a general perspective?
I would say overarching, just their identity.
Okay.
On a big picture of, again, tying, because I struggled with this, who you are versus what you do, and the ability to separate. I think, we get in officiating, and look, especially if you're fortunate to climb the ranks, it's a lot of good. I tell people go find me a better hobby for 4 months where you can make 6 figures, and you're on TV and you're running up and down a basketball. Like if you love basketball, in sports, you're not going to find a better hobby. So 1, the identity. 2, don't be a yes but guy, right? I think whether it's someone telling you something, even if it's a partner that you don't like and they're sharing something, okay, thanks. But as soon as you're yeah, but I want, it's you've just negated what they just shared with you. So be open to feedback. I think as officials, we are a majority are type A and driven, but I think that can be a downfall too, because we don't think we need anyone's help. We're going to just go on this solo mission, but the more people that you can pull up on your journey, and then, both ways, get help from those above you, but then also as you start to climb, make sure you're sticking your hand out to help others. But also at the end of the day, that individual has to be open to receiving feedback. Yeah. And unfortunately, as you know, not everyone is, which is okay, but the ones that are eager and are taking notes, and those are the people I want to help and give opportunities to, and help in any way that I can, whether it's on a podcast or going to camp, still being involved, because getting plays right in officiating is you got to do that, but there's so many other, that's why I talk about, having a PhD in human behavior. There's so many other things in officiating that comprise who you are as a person besides just blowing a whistle. That's basic. Now let's get to the 300 level, the 400 level of officiating, and it's all the things you talked about that are going to accelerate your career, but also make you a better person. Because if you're a better person, you're going to be a better ref. Don't be a great ref and then just a jerk that nobody, because we all know those people, and those people aren't fun to be around. No matter how great they are and what games they work, you don't want to be around those people.
It's I tell my community right now, you should be putting health first. You should be putting your health number 1 before officiating. Yes. I made that switch 2 years ago, and it's elevated my officiating to a whole new level.
100%.
I'm trying to inspire, more dialed in referees to focus on health and nutrition, because, ultimately the official who's in the best shape, I think has the best chance to move up. You look like you're in great shape.
Well, and to your point, even if you're tied with someone, right? If a supervisor's looking at you and another official, and one guy's in shape and one's not, you just made the decision really easy for the supervisor. And I'll piggyback on your point. The first time I spoke 4 or 5 years ago, get through the speech, and in the Q&A, they want to hear about basketball stories and all this. And I hadn't thought about this answer, but one of the guys on the sales team said, hey, it's like sales or in business, hard to get somewhere, harder to stay there. Hard to get to Division I, harder to stay there for 10 plus years. And he was like, hey, what do you equate, because he was trying to equate it to sales. Hey, you can get to President's Club, you can be the top earner, but are you doing that consistently, or did you just have one great year and now you're back at the bottom? And I, to piggyback off your answer, my answer was, I started prioritizing. I got really good at all the boring things, prioritizing sleep, even though we're just piecemealing sleep throughout the season. Nutrition, working out, film, casebook. I used to read the rule books while I was riding a bike, because I wanted to stimulate, I wanted a racing heart rate, because when we're on the court, we're not just
stationary bike, right?
Stationary bike. Yeah.
I'm envisioning you on the road. I'm like, you're a talented guy.
No, just stationary bike or on the treadmill, just because I wanted to get my heart rate up to stimulate on the game, because great to read a rule book here at a table, but my heart rate's not going to be at 75 during a game. And so I finished my answer with listing all these things. I said, I guess I just got better at doing the boring things better than others. And I remember going back and watching that, and I was like, do boring better. I was like, oh, that'd be a cool website. And cheap plug, I ended up trademarking that phrase, because I genuinely think, whether it's officiating or life, your ability to do the boring things better that others in your industry would look at and say, why is Paul working out every day? Why is Paul prioritizing his nutrition? That's boring. But the boring things are how you get ahead in whatever profession. So to me, I always tell people, do boring better. Go do the boring things better that most don't want to do because it's boring. But then when you make the fundamentals, that's your basis. that's when you start to succeed, and you prioritize all the boring things. That's how you really start to see success.
My daughter, once we turned the tablet off last night, was like, I'm so bored. And my wife was always like, great.
Yeah.
Because, boredom is what happens right before your next, creative step or your next big idea.
100%. And that was, bring it back full circle to the year without a phone. That was probably my second takeaway, is like, we are bored being bored as a society. Like, we don't know how to function, whether we're in the locker room or having lunch with someone, if they get up and leave, or just during the conversation, like pulling out our phone, or, like your daughter, like she was bored. It's like, yeah, we don't, like, we're so stimulated with screens and all this other stuff. It's like, we don't know how to just like sit there with our thoughts.
Damn, bro, how am I going to grow this podcast turning into my cell phone? What do you expect me to do?
You can use it for this, because we're serving the community.
Let's talk about the importance of mentoring, finding your mentors, and then mentoring others as well as a way to grow.
Yeah, this is something, Crown Ref, I wish that was around when I was still officiating. I was fortunate, had a handful of mentors in my corner: Joe DeRosa, Doug Sermons, John Adams, Curtis Shaw. Yeah, like I was very fortunate. But on the other side too, seeing that those officials were willing to help me and watch plays and just discuss situations, like I wanted to do the same thing. And again, once you start climbing the ladder, being sure to like reach back and help others, because it's just going to help the community as a whole. But being able to just be in a community with like-minded individuals who are proactively seeking growth, who are willing to do the hard work to get better, like that takes extra effort and time. It's very easy just to get your games, work the games, not interact, go home, like stay in your bubble. And I think, I don't want to speak for others, for myself, like outside of mentors, like sometimes I had to remind myself, like, as much as this is an individual path, like you're not going to get very far if you stay like just closed off. And so for me, it was seeking out others, which wasn't easy for me to do initially, but seeing that I've got to lean on the wisdom of others, and also peer group, like having that, small group of 2 or 3, 4 guys that, you have that group text with, you can drop plays in there and know that they're not going to placate to, oh yeah, you got it right. It's like, no, I genuinely want to get better. So for me, in any walk of life, but especially officiating, like community is how you're going to get better. Community is how you're going to help others that are both below you at your level or even on the same wavelength to help them further their career as well.
You mentioned the acronym WAIT, and I'm just thinking of you providing like some quick hitters of best officiating advice you got, like control what you can control. Why are you talking?
Why am I talking?
Why am I talking?
Yeah.
Any other quick hitters for our audience listening?
Run the game. I got that from Joe DeRosa. That was probably the main one I kept saying throughout the game, of just like keeping it track. I think John Wooden said you can be fast, but don't hurry. Like just being like always looking at clocks, like line. I always associate a line with a clock.
Yeah, like
so anytime I crossed the line, it was just a cue to look up at the clock.
Bo Borowski taught me that on his episode.
Okay.
He found markers on the court to look up and remind himself.
I always wanted to look up at the clock. Control what you can control. I prided myself on just being a rule junkie. I never wanted to put my partners in a situation that I couldn't get them out of. So I just know the rule book in and out, case book. However many plays there are, 300. I probably only saw like 7 of those, but like you got to know how to adjudicate those if they come. So I would say, just run the game.
Love it.
Wait, it was a big one, and just staying dialed in with the rules.
Dialed in. I have my second podcast is called Dialed In.
Okay.
It's a health and wellness podcast.
Okay.
We did 15 episodes. I learned a lot from this episode. I feel like a lot of the guests I bring on, I do it selfishly to get mentored myself. So this was a nice mentorship session for me. But to our dedicated audience of basketball officials listening, anything you want to say directly to our audience before you go?
Use officiating. Don't let it use you. It can provide some unbelievable opportunities. Don't get lost in the fact of what's truly important. The day after I stepped off the court, college basketball still went on. I still have great relationships with those that I'm close with, but don't let this become all-consuming of your life. It can take you and provide you with so many wonderful opportunities, but keep everything in perspective and know at the end of the day, your friends and family care about you and love you, and when you step away, whenever that is, whether it's at 35 or 65 or 75, the game will still go on without you, regardless of what level you work. But use the game, don't let it use you.
Tommy, it was a pleasure having
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for having
much
me,
for
Paul.
this. This
Yeah,
was great,
absolutely.
Great stuff, man.
We'll see you in Fort Wayne.
Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Crown Refs podcast. Serve the game.
Hey officials, thank you so much for being a part of Crown Refs. I'm grateful that you're here. It would mean the absolute world to me if you could join our Patreon community. You can go to patreon.com/Crown Refs to choose your membership. I can't wait to have you on the team. I'm excited because we're officially launching the first ever Crown Refs Skill Development Camp happening May 1st through May 3rd, 2026 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's right, we're coming to the Hoosier State. This camp is designed for varsity level officials who are hungry for more clarity, more confidence, and stronger direction in their officiating journey. This camp is open to high school officials aspiring to work college, also officials aspiring to work the pro game, international officials, NCAA men's, NCAA women's. All you need is varsity experience and genuine commitment to grow. If you're serious about growing, not just as an official, but as a professional and a person, I'd be honored to have you there. Fort Wayne, Indiana, May 1st through May 3rd, Crown Refs Skill Development Camp. I can't wait to meet you there.